want to do for New York? Big Apple, whatever.
Anything, absolutely.
Plug the city.
Best place to be if you're going to be at the convention. Nothing like it. You'll enjoy it. Bring lots of money. As a matter of fact, there's going to be lots of thunderstorms across the Ohio Valley today. Some nasty thunder showers in the lower Ohio Valley and also in the Great Lakes region today from this low-pressure system and the cool air behind it. This front will drive the low northeast for today, producing thunderstorms through western New York State and also into western Pennsylvania. Down south, it's going to be very steamy once again today. The monsoonal flow will create showers in the Four Corners area. Look at these temperatures. Very hot, steamy in the south today. The swelter will continue. It's not the dog days yet, but it feels like it. But look at the northern plains. Very nice temperatures today. What about the weekend? Well, here's what we have. Mild weather, temperature-wise, in the northern plains. Warm across the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and western New England. But down south, even all the way into northern New England, it's going to be very, very hot and steamy. And that'll turn out some strong scattered thunderstorms across the plains for this weekend. Looks like some of those could be heavy once again with the monsoonal flow in the southwest. Southern Texas will continue to be hot. The southeast will continue to be steamy, while the north will be sunny, but yet the northern plains, the northern Mississippi Valley, and the northern Great Lakes are going to see some cool weather and nice sunny weather. That'll be the best place to be, besides the Pacific Coast, which will see sunshine and very nice weather for this time of the year. Hope you have a great weekend. That's a look at the nation's weather. Now here's a look at your local forecast.
Well, hello there, everybody. Channel 5 meteorologist Rick Mitchell here. We are going to be sandwiched in between two frontal systems, a strong one to the south. That's where all the thunderstorms are going to be. Dry day for us, though. Highs in the middle 80s. 5 for Des Moines and vicinity. We eventually will see some sunshine returning. Still muggy, though, today, a high of 84. Winds west-northwesterly 5 to 15 miles per hour.
Coming up, we'll look at some beach and surfing forecasts. And here's a guy who knows all about the convention and probably has a lot of money, too. Charlie?
Thanks very much. It's 10 minutes after the hour. Now that the man who will be the Democratic presidential nominee, Bill Clinton, has chosen as his running mate Tennessee Senator Al Gore, how are the Republicans going to react? Well, joining us from Washington is Rich Bond. He's chairman of the Republican National Committee. Rich, good to have you with us again.
Hello, Charlie.
I know all my Republican friends have been weighing the pros and cons of all the choices, and particularly Al Gore, because he was thought to be the favorite. Now, be honest with me. As the Republican National Committee met, tell me what problems this ticket gives you.
Well, first, Al Gore is a good and honest man. But the fact of the matter is that I think at this point that they've gone for a go-for-broke strategy. Bill Clinton has chosen a regional approach. He's gone to the region that's our strongest region. We love the South. The South loves George Bush. And I think they've rejected a national campaign at this point. So while I think that Gore is a fine man, I think his vice presidential candidacy is a dud on arrival, because they may be at this point trying to just throw their election into the House of Representatives because they've got greater strength in the House of Representatives than they've got out in the country.
But don't you take Bill Clinton at his word yesterday? This is not a regional approach with what he does. It is an idea to put a new generation.
Charlie, I'm one of those Americans who doesn't take Bill Clinton at his word on anything. And I think that Al Gore is a nice guy. He's been a good senator from Tennessee. But I think as a vice presidential nominee, it doesn't offer the voters much in New York or California that there's anybody on the ticket that really can identify with their concerns or has any experience in dealing with their concerns.
Well, but it is an interesting appeal to generational politics. It says that this is a different Democratic Party, a new generation of people. It is a united front, two people who are very similar in many respects, which also shows that perhaps the Democrats are not this time a kind of patchwork of interest groups, as a lot of people have felt the party was in the past.
Oh, I don't know, Charlie. I think that you have both candidates now on the Democratic ticket who are pretty much left of center. Al Gore is the most liberal senator from the South. He was rated as the #1 spender in the Senate for the last session of the Congress. He has really taken a very, very extreme stand on the environment, and I feel personally went down to Rio and tried to undercut President Bush's attempts to get a balanced treaty on the environment. And actually some of the things that Senator Gore did down there really undercut American jobs and the auto industry in particular. I don't think that's much of an appeal. So if you're sitting in Michigan right now, you've got to wonder if they're really your friend, and I think the answer is no.
Rich, you're really going to try to paint this ticket as liberal?
Well,
Bill
Clinton
was certainly not perceived that way this time, and when Al Gore ran in 1988 for the presidency, he was not perceived that way.
Well, look at the Clinton economic plan, for instance. This call for increased taxes, this call for increased social spending. These appeals against the death penalty, these favoritism to criminals in their obstruction of President Bush's crime bill, which Bill Clinton supports. I mean, there's an awful lot of things that put them squarely left of center, and that's not where the American people are. And so I don't want to get into the personal criticisms. Like I said, that Senator Gore is a very nice man and comes from a very, very good family. But he doesn't bring the balance to the ticket that you normally would get in a vice presidential selection. And I think it gives him a problem in the end with being stuck with a regional strategy in our strongest region, the region we love, the South.
Well, that is interesting. You've made a couple of references to that. Does it put the South in play, do you think? A lot of people felt that with the United South, it gave George Bush an awfully strong base, in effect, of support. Does it put that in, challenge you right at your base?
Well, Charlie, I think that's the theory, but I'll tell you what my gut reaction was when I heard this the other day, is that with a candidate from Arkansas, border South states like Tennessee or Kentucky were already in play for the Democratic Party with a Clinton-esque appeal down there. I think the addition of Al Gore is a redundancy, which really would have been wiser to go someplace else, to New York or Indiana or out west, to try to put a little balance on the ticket. I really don't think it gives them anything more. And when you look at what happened with Senator Benson in 1988, everyone thought that was a brilliant stroke because it would put Texas in play. Turned out they couldn't even win Texas. The story of this election maybe is they went to the South in a regional strategy, and it backfired on them because they couldn't even carry the South. And when they can't carry the South, they can't carry the rest of the country. Rich
Bond, give me a name. Who would have been a tougher vice presidential candidate as far as you were concerned? Who were you worried about on that ticket most?
I really wasn't worried about anybody, Charlie, because you got to remember, they don't vote for vice president, they vote for president, and Bill Clinton is the failed governor of a small state, and in the end, people are going to focus on Bill Clinton.
Rich Bond, chairman of the Republican National Committee, always a pleasure to have you here. We'll be talking to you many times, I hope, in coming weeks. It is now 14 minutes after the hour. I apologize. From the home of Senator and Mrs. Al Gore Sr., a personal view of their son, the candidate, when we continue.
The way to not win in tennis is to think too much about your opponent. Because in tennis, you don't just play the opponent. You've got to play the ball. It's how you play the ball that determines whether your shot is in or out. Whether the point is won or lost. Play the ball better than your opponent, and you'll play winning tennis. Now, you can play the ball and win with this double offer from Tennis Magazine. You'll receive a free half-hour video by Tennis Magazine instruction editor Vic Braden, plus a full year, 12 issues of Tennis Magazine. Call this number now and change the way you play tennis. What a combination. The How to Play Winning Tennis with Vic Braden video, plus the magazine that brings more instruction to more tennis players than any other. Call 800-341-2222 for a full year of Tennis Magazine plus the free video. Just $13.77. Call 800-341-2222 now.
Can you find the drug pusher in this picture? It's hard to believe kids this young are at risk because someone their age may be offering them drugs. Someone they think is their friend. Talk to your kids about drugs. Tell them that anyone who offers them drugs is not a friend.
Stay with Channel 5 all this weekend for complete coverage of the Rouen Grand Prix. Channel 5 will be bringing you live special reports at 5, including racing news, the weather you'll need to know while you're out at the track, plus an in-depth look behind the scenes of the Grand Prix. All this weekend, Channel 5 puts you in the winner's circle of the Rouen Crater Des Moines Grand Prix.
An interlude with Joel Siegel. His review of Prelude to a Kiss in our next half hour.
It's 17 after the hour. The man Bill Clinton selected as his running mate is no stranger to Washington, D.C. When Al Gore was born, his father was a congressman. The senior Gore was later elected senator from Tennessee and served 3 terms ending in 1970. A liberal from a conservative state, he supported civil rights legislation and opposed the war in Vietnam. His mother, Pauline, was a strong presence in Washington in her own right. A politically savvy lawyer, she was one of the first women graduates of Vanderbilt University's law school. The Gores join us this morning from their farm in Carthage, Tennessee. Good morning to both of you, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Nancy.
This question really goes to both of you. You must be so proud this morning.
Yes.
We're about to burst.
I bet you are. Were you surprised at all?
Beg pardon?
Were you surprised, or did you have a feeling that this might be coming?
Well, we really tried not to think about it.
He was not a candidate for it, and it developed very late.
Senator Gore, I'm going to ask you to take off your father's hat and put on your political hat for a second. Tell me what weaknesses there are in this ticket, and then I want you to tell me about the strengths.
Well, first I wish to deal with the importance some people attach to geography. What's important is what the candidate has done, is capable of doing, and in whom you can place confidence with what he will do. Those are the important things, not where he lives, not where he pays his taxes.
That would certainly defy the way we've looked at politics in the past, because you know, we've always gone to great, I think tickets have always gone to great extremes to think about regional balance.
Well, the past is prologue. We're looking to the future now. A new generation is going to take charge. It's time for it to take charge.
We're always searching for better ways to do things, and maybe this is the time to try this way. It's not always perfect the way we've done it.
What makes this ticket perfect in your eyes?
Well, the men, the wives, the records of all four of them, the promise they give and which they embody.
You brought up wives. This certainly is going to be a very hot issue this year. We've watched political wives emerge from a role as supporter and background person to now really watching couples run as teams.
Well, I've been accustomed to that for a long time.
And she was no background person, was she? That was a strong team. Mrs. Gore, in 1988, your son had an unsuccessful run for the, trying to get the nomination for the presidency for the Democratic Party, and it was unsuccessful. There were a lot of ups and downs, I'm sure, during that bid. Do you have any trepidation based on the 1988 run and looking into 1992?
No. He did the best he could, and he ran a very creditable campaign. I think did a marvelous job. And he'll give this campaign the very best he has, and I think we'll do a good job. I think the two of them will do a good job.
As a child, when was your first indication that Al Gore Jr. was headed for life in politics? Did you see the glimmer early?
No, the night he called us when we were in Davis, California, where my husband was teaching, he called us and told us he was running.
And after I got my breath, I said, "Son, I'll vote for you."
Well, he certainly comes from a relatively unconventional family. A mother who's a lawyer, prominent woman in Washington, graduated from Vanderbilt. A father who sort of bucks social tradition, going for relatively liberal issues in a relatively conservative state. What influences do you think those two issues have had on Al Gore Jr.?
Well, I think a person's background and their upbringing is very important. They absorb a lot that maybe you don't realize they're taking in. They have opportunities that they wouldn't have if they weren't associated with someone that was active and involved in many of the issues of the day. And I think it had a big influence.
Was rearing your son in Washington one of those advantages?
Was what?
Was rearing your son in Washington one of those advantages?
Yes, I think it had advantages, but I think it had to be coupled with his down-to-earth upbringing here on the farm. And he spent all of the summers and all of the holidays and had warm, young friends playing around all the time and working with him. But I think it took both of those places to live and the experiences that he had to make the kind of person that he is, a balanced and happy person.
Senator, Mrs. Gore, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
In our next half hour, entertainer Barry Manilow when Good Morning America continues.